have with us this morning Mr. Clement Richards. As you heard from the chief, he is a consultant for the UNDP based in Barbados, representing Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean. And he's a consultant for strengthening resilience and coping capacities in the Caribbean through Integrated Early Warning Systems project. A project with a long name, but it has to do with disaster preparedness and preparing our schools to respond in emergency situations. And so I call on Mr. Clement Richards, who I'm guessing will give us a little overview of what he has been doing before he makes his presentation. Mr. Richards.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Chairperson, sorry. Mr. Minister, Chief, other members of the head table, distinguished guests, I am indeed humbled and of course, all the very many principals from the schools of Dominica and the media to which I normally associate. I am indeed humbled and honored to be given this opportunity to address this illustrious gathering. As you have heard, my name is Clement Richards, and many people know various things about me. But what many of you don't know is that I'm also a PAE, or Public Awareness and Education Consultant, with a focus on participatory and non-formal education. In this role, I, together with Wayne Abraham, recently completed work on this long-named project you just heard about, and which you could just refer to as the Early Warning System Project. This project was a regional initiative which was also implemented in Antigua, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent. The education component of this project was implemented in Dominica from January 5th to June 31st, 2016 by the Office of Disaster Management with funding from the European Commission Humanitarian Aid and Civil Organization, DPSU, through UNDP Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean. And so this photos here just illustrates some of the work which was done. This particular set relates to tsunami exercise in Dublanc. Both Mr. Abraham and myself served as education coordinators for this project, with Mr. Abraham focusing on the production of community-developed disaster plans for Dublanc and Colihaut, while I concentrated on creating school emergency operation plans, or SEOPs, for the Dublanc and Colihaut schools, as well as the St. John's and Massacre primary schools. Time does not allow for a review of this project here, but with regards to the production of the school emergency plans, this can only be described as having been an unqualified and outstanding success. Not only were we able to develop the plans which were required, but in the process we refined an approach to what I like to refer to as school DDR, or school disaster risk reduction, with scores of teachers and hundreds of students involved in the process. And this particular process applies to schools with large populations, 300 and over, as well as those with very small populations, 35, 20, and actually Miss Jane Preschool in the corner, wherever it is. In my experience over the years, it has been always difficult to get programs coming from outside to be readily accepted by teachers and principals, since this tends to put additional pressure on the already heavy workloads, and sometimes because of very little interest and buy-in regarding the objectives and results of these interventions. And although the post-ERICA situation placed additional work pressures because of the times which schools lost, this case was very different, very, very different. In each of the cases, there was quite a lot of interest, and teachers wanted answers to questions as, what should I do if a tsunami is approaching? And in many cases, others reiterated sentiments like, quote, or you can say what all you want, but if something happening, I'm not staying in the school. I'm going to get my child. However, while this may sound amusing, this is a very real concern, which among others were addressed during this consultancy. And in regard to this point of teachers responsibility versus their responsibility to their homes, I wish to quote a small portion of the template, of the SEOP template here, which says, quote, all staff members of the schools are expected to remain, all staff members of schools are expected to develop personal and family emergency plans. Each family should anticipate that a staff member may be required to remain at school following a catastrophic event. Knowing the family is prepared and can handle the situation at home will enable school staff to do their jobs more effectively, unquote. But to continue, as part of this process, the students will also engage, and in some cases, the students will also engage, in addition to the teachers, and in some cases, would the parent-teachers associations, which is possibly the first time that such a comprehensive approach has been taken in developing any type of plans for schools in Dominica. But not only were the staff and students involved, but also were the principals, who through their badge of approval gave further impetus and support to the program. And for this, I want to publicly commend the outstanding support and cooperation received from Mrs. Joseph from the Dublanc Primary School, Mrs. George from the Colihaut Primary School, Mrs. Daly, formerly from the Canefiled Primary School, and Mrs. Peters from St. John's Primary. Can you all give them a round of applause, please? But as I said earlier, this development process and template for the school plans was an unqualified success because not only were the requested deliverables produced and outstanding buy-in achieved in respect to the target communities, that is the teachers and students, but the process and products were accepted and endorsed at one of the highest levels in the Ministry of Education. And here I refer to the Chief Education Officer, Mrs. Fontaine. Mrs. Fontaine and her staff were made aware of the project prior to its start in 2015. And when the results were presented to her, I can only describe her reaction as, quote unquote, very satisfied. And to my pleasant surprise, Mrs. Fontaine immediately, literally grabbed, quote unquote, the concept of school grab bags and stated that her department would look into providing the necessary supplies. In addition, she did the same with respect to the prescribed list of emergency supplies for schools, as mentioned in the SEOP. I'm sure this is sweet music to the ears of the principals concerned. I hope I'm not talking out of class, so to speak, when I also feel that Mrs. Fontaine and her staff are doing what we most fervently hoped for, but never really expected. They are seriously considering rolling out the SEOP program to other schools around the island if funding can be obtained. So the SEOP program achieved its main quote-unquote secret agenda of being a pilot program for a CDM or comprehensive disaster management strategy for schools on the island. It is often glibly stated that children are our future, but with regards to disaster risk reduction, I am totally convinced of this, since our current generation is asleep at the switch. And if this is the case, the School Emergency Operations Plan template is an excellent foundation to produce adults of tomorrow who understands and incorporates disaster risk reduction, or DDR, into all aspects of their lives in this quote-unquote Isle of Beauty, Isle of Splendor, which we call Dominica. Thank you.